Dempsey Weiss and Associates is a multi-line insurance agency successfully meeting the insurance and financial needs of the landscaping, business contractor, and agricultural community in southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania since 1989. To learn more, visit us at www.dempseyweiss.com.
Hey there, and welcome to the Business of Business podcast. Here we are two daughters and their dad, seeking to inspire and educate you to follow your dreams of being in business by teaching you the business of being in business. The good, the bad, the humor are all parts of our unique perspective as an entrepreneurial family. Thanks for joining us. So grab a coffee, turn up the volume. Here we go.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast. I am your host, Staci J. Dempsey, and the J is very important because it is what brings the joy. And I am here, like usual, per usual, thankfully, once again, with the dad and the daughter, Jack and Jennifer. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we are really excited because our guest today, Jen of Mountain Girl Farm, correct?
That's it.
Awesome. Mountain Girl Farm is here with us today to talk a little bit about her new adventure in getting into the goat farm business, how she kind of got there, maybe what some friends had to say or not say about it. So good morning to you, Jen. How are you today?
I'm fabulous. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being on. We really appreciate you taking time out of the day for, we work with a lot of agricultural clients here in Jersey. And so we know that it is hard to break away from the farm at times. So we appreciate you carving out this time with us. So why don't we just jump right into it? Tell us a little bit about Mountain Girl Farm and how long you've been where you are and what you all do there.
Well, Mountain Girl Farm is a small goat dairy in Western Massachusetts. And we started, I guess, it's just been about 7 years ago. It was a team effort between my daughter and I. It was a real leap of faith. It's working for us. We've had to adapt along the way, but I absolutely love milking goat. And it's a brand new experience that has just brought complete change of lifestyle for us. We also raise some ducks and chickens and do some vegetable growing. And in addition to that, we've evolved into running a full farm kitchen that makes about 15 to 18 different kinds of jam and jelly throughout the year. Every kind of vegetable that could possibly be pickled, we have. We make some awesome goat milk soap, and we run a full bakery as well.
So you're busy, is what we're. So you're busy,
not
and
enough
that's
hours
good.
in the day.
Right. No, I totally get that. But honestly, all of that stuff, everything that you've just mentioned sounds delicious and fun. And, sounds like you guys have a good time there. So 7 years on the farm, did you have any prior farm or agricultural experience?
Grew up a horse lover. I had a few horses through my teenage years into my early adult life. My family retired and did some cattle raising. So we had that. We were big 4-H'ers of a few ducks and chickens along the way. And it's family pets. So being in a barn was not new to me. Loved that lifestyle.
Before Mountain Girl Farm started, what were you doing before that?
I was a licensed family child care provider for 25 years. That was a fabulous way to be at home with my daughter and provide her with in-home care until she went to school, and a very flexible schedule to accommodate that for her. I also dabbled for a bit in some multi-level marketing and was with a gourmet food company for about 15 years. And I really enjoyed that as well. So I've really always had a couple of different outlets and ways to expend some energy.
I like the way you said that. So I was just going to say, it sounds like you've kind of always had, always kind of been in business for yourself in some way, shape, or form, where you were responsible and in charge and whatnot. Would that be a fair statement?
I have been self-employed all of my adult life.
And doing a couple of different things. That's neat. A lot of our podcasters guests come from, they start in one area and kind of move through different areas of business. So Jen, I saw you puckering up your lips there. You're getting ready to jump in before I cut you off.
All right. Do it. Older sisters always normally cut me off. Yeah. So we were talking about that a little bit before we hit record, how, entrepreneurship is something that is drawn to people at different times in their life. But a lot of entrepreneurs really stay that course their whole life. Would you agree with that, Jen?
Absolutely. It's just a drive that I feel I've had my whole life.
So can you just explain to our listeners kind of what it is about entrepreneurship that you love the most?
I am very self-motivated, and I think I really thrive for that carrot or the prize that's at the end. And I have always practiced that goal setting visually, whether it be a postcard or a picture or a trip I'm trying to earn. And that was instilled in me very early on. I'll give you a quick example. My first sales job, actually, my first job was selling Avon. And I was 14 years old and couldn't even sign the contract. My mom signed it for me. And I carried my Avon case with the little lipstick samples all through my neighborhood. And this was probably early 80s, maybe probably late 70s even. But there was back then, they had a sales meeting. Of course, I couldn't drive. My mom drove me and dropped me off. And it was this big fall review in a ballroom. I had never seen anything like this, but I went. And Foxfire Cologne was coming out. It was this big release of this new perfume from Avon. And if you pre-bought 12 bottles of this Foxfire Cologne, they gave you this beautiful silk scarf. And I wanted that. I thought I could have that. And I was convinced I could sell this 12 bottles of cologne because no one ever told me I couldn't. I didn't know any different. And I bought the bottles. I got the scarf, and I still have it to this day wrapped in the box it came in. I felt so proud of myself that I had reached that goal. And that continued with me as I moved into other jobs. I found when I worked for other people, I didn't always have that thrill of accomplishing a task. And I really have always fed off of that. Whatever I'm going to do next, I need to set that goal and reach that. It may not happen on the date I intended, but you have to be able to release yourself from that commitment and move it out a couple more weeks until you can figure out how to make that happen. For me.
That's awesome. Self-motivated, goal setting, all things that we've talked about before in our podcast. It's funny because I just read a quote the other day. The first part of the quote was talking about what kind of motivation can you give to entrepreneurs? And the response was, well, if you need motivation given to you by someone else, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? So that just reminded me of that. And to come back with a little story. I remember being young, maybe 16, I wanted a cell phone. My dad said, no, you can't have a cell phone. So I saved all, at the time I was actually teaching dance. So I saved all my money. And you guys remember those phones that you could buy and you could put minutes on? So I went out and that was a very proud moment, right? So when one person tells you no, the reality is you're just asking the wrong person, or you need to go out and get it yourself. So that was an early on lesson that my dad is always trying to teach us lessons somehow, right?
Yeah, but I think I remember still having to pay a big cell phone bill later on. It's like you went over your minutes by like, I don't know, 10,000 or something. It was like I had to take a second mortgage to pay your bill off. It's crazy. I hated those phones.
I think it's funny too that Jennifer said when I was young, as if she's old now, but I know what you're saying. Anyway, Jack, you look like you were getting perked up there to say something.
Yeah. I just again, great story. One of the things we talk about, Jen, is your why. We have seen where one of the things that will truly get you past the headwinds of entrepreneurship, because you're going to run into them, and I'm sure we're going to hear about some of yours, and we want to hear about some of the headwinds that you face once you moved into your business. But we talk about there's how you do a business, and then there's why. And having a strong why is very important when you start to face those headwinds. So in this type of business I'm picturing with you, would you be able to kind of identify like what was your big why for starting, what started out to be, a goat farm, but it's transitioned into so much more.
I agree with you, first of all, that a why is extremely important. And I think folks really need to understand when you're in your own business that that's constantly changing and evolving. It's not always one simple why from beginning to end. For me, my biggest why for starting the goat farm was I really needed to change my life. I had been working at home in my house for 25 years, and I needed to be out doing something else. And I knew that working for someone else was not going to be the answer for me. So changing location was not the only thing I needed. I needed a new outlet and an avenue. I really wanted to be outdoors, and I really wanted to make cheese. I just wanted to make goat cheese. And that was really my biggest why at the time when we started.
Well, that's interesting because, what the other thing that we talk about a lot is, there's people who have a strong desire to be an entrepreneur, but don't maybe have, a clear picture on what they want to do. And so we've talked about identifying gaps, looking out and say, all right, where is there a gap out there that, a person could fill, with a business? So when you started thinking of goats and, the products that that can be produced, from goat milk, I mean, did you see a gap where people were actually looking for that? I mean, where, you felt like, hey, here's a niche or a gap that I could fill, with some products?
There really isn't any goat cheese producers here in this area. And originally we had thought about getting involved in meat. And that quickly changed for us from goat meat to going to cheese and raising dairy goats, which is a different animal, and a little bit different process. Craft food is a very big deal right now. It's up and coming. There's a huge need in this area for that. We're in a very high tourist area. We have a number of restaurants here that really thrive on farm to table. And there just was no one here producing that in probably close to a 50-mile radius. There was one goat dairy in Arlington, Vermont that was actually selling, and they had been doing it for about 50 years and retiring. She kind of mentored us along, and that was a great partnership as we started to transition into raising dairy goats.
So when you say craft farming, or craft products, I think it's it's CRAFT, or, that type of craft. Is that
Correct. Craft foods. So really small produced batched foods. We're not, with the most that we've ever milked, and I do hand milk, is 6 goats at a time, which is somewhere around maybe 9 to 10 gallons of milk a day. It's small batched. Everything is hand done. This is not going into big vats. This is not being mechanically produced. Everything we make is handmade.
So why do you think that there's, and I agree with you, because I know here in our area, when we first started our business, the roadside markets were a big deal. And then there seemed to be a transition to where you start to see a lot of our roadside markets start to close up, but now they're reemerging again. Where do you think what were you seeing out there that all of a sudden people, because clearly if you're making products like that out of small batches, people aren't overly concerned about the price, right? Because you're going to have to charge a little more for that level of product. But what do you see shifting out there? Why that seems to be a great that demand's coming back?
Folks are really concerned about what they're eating, or the shift is definitely going that direction. And over the past few years, we've seen a number of people really want to support small farms and really supporting women in farming, which right now has really significantly increased. It's a great way for us to create an income. Goats for us were a nice choice. There's something that's manageable in size for us to move around. It's an animal that's about 200, 230 pounds for our bigger girls. People really want to support that lifestyle. It's very hands-on. We have a great relationship with our customer, and they can tell you every name of the goats on the farm. They really are involved and invested in what it is that we're doing. They like the fact that our livestock comes to us and it stays with us for life. We are extremely hands-on, every animal, every day. And that has become a niche that was really missing from big, large commercial farms. They definitely have a place and they do provide a lot of food for us, but we really became involved and interested in having that close-knit relationship with our client.
So in that situation, so, for our listeners out there that are maybe considering a business, that's going to be, and I'm going to classify it this way, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, more of like a niche business, that where you're kind of pursuing, kind of a certain client base, competing with the bigger stores, competing with, all your big box stores, your Whole Foods, they all have organic sections now. They all have kind of what I would say kind of some of those craft type of foods or areas in their stores. So what would you say from an entrepreneur standpoint, how do you compete there? Is it the relationship, drawing your clients in a certain way?
I hope so. I hope they like this mother and daughter story. I hope they like the fact that we are working together. We're very real about our experience and lack of experience that we've had, and we share that openly and honestly with people. We are very fortunate or unfortunate in the area where I am. We don't have Whole Foods. We don't have Trader Joe's. It doesn't exist. What we have are these small niche farms. They are becoming the up and growing business in this area when people want to go out and buy gourmet food and talk with the person who's made it from beginning to end.
I think
That's
that's
good.
an interesting perspective because, I think for those, again, our listeners out there that are thinking about a business, that is going to be more niche oriented. If we heard what Jen said there is it starts with her story, and I think that's a really critical piece for an entrepreneur is not only to, understand your own story, and take the time to really think through, your story, but then being able to communicate that in a very effective way that people say, you know what, I want to be part of that. I want to support that. And so I hope people are hearing that is, is that story. And I like the second piece of what you said there, Jen, is that, you also have no problem talking about, your vulnerabilities or your weaknesses or kind of, where you still have to grow in. I think that brings a real trust into a business relationship with the customer that you're willing to share that with them. And I think it makes it more real. And I think you stand a greater chance of developing a loyal following because of, feeling like you can talk about your vulnerabilities there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you hearing that. I think as I think back about all of the different things that I've done, and one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, when you are self-employed or operating a business of any type, I personally believe that the most important part for me is building a relationship with every customer, and an honest relationship that really is able to let us know how and why we are in business, and letting them know that we are really willing to work with them and for them so that we can understand what it is that they're looking for. I could have the best idea in the world and think this is going to be the greatest product ever, but if people aren't willing to buy that and it's not really what they're looking for, I have to kind of be able to walk away from that and shift, not be stuck on it so much that I create myself into creating a product that is not what the public is looking to buy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I work really hard to listen to what people want and see if we can create that for them by consistently being willing to rethink and shift our menu and shift what it is that we're producing. People seem to be really receptive to that. Sometimes your ideas have to change as you're going along.
J Faith Hair Studio, centrally located in southern New Jersey. J Faith Hair Studio is the place to go to become the best version of yourself. Confidence in your appearance is always important, and a great hairstyle is an absolute necessity. Visit jfaithherestudio.com to book your appointment today.
Well, that was great. There was a whole bunch of nuggets in there. I feel like it's such good stories and insight. Jen, I know that, earlier you had mentioned that you had someone that mentored you. So just tell us a little bit about kind of what that meant to you as far as someone mentoring you and what you feel the difference is in your business since you had one versus maybe if you didn't have one.
I had never met a goat when we decided to have a goat farm. And our first goat was $10 that we bought at a farmer's market. He was 2 days old, and we bought him because he was going to be eaten. So we came home with this $10 goat from a dairy farm. There we were. She said, I'll help you. And her name is Jennifer as well. And she and her husband did mentor us, knew we were getting this farm, and we had this little boy goat who was absolutely no use on a dairy farm. And we bought a female as well. And home we went stopped at Tractor Supply, got them, some goat replacer because they had to be bottle fed. And she did become a mentor to us. They were in the process of looking for a buyer for their farm. They'd been there for a very, very long time, and they needed to retire. They were just coming into their early 60s. But she was very reassuring to us that we could do this and was extremely willing to share her knowledge with us, which was fantastic. We also got in line with a fabulous vet, and she also was a very phenomenal resource to me. We bred our goats first year. I'd never even seen a goat birthed. I was alone, had to take this on. I had memorized all the birthing positions. So if there was a problem, I would know what to do. Of course, it came in real life and I panicked. My first goat birth, I was alone and did need to help. Vet was on the phone, but she also was extremely willing to teach us how to handle situations alone, because that's important on a farm or in any business. She couldn't come there 6 times a day if we had a problem. She had to teach us, and we had to be willing to listen to that. And both Julie and Jennifer did that for us. And I felt that that had really worked for us when, of course, we had sold some of our goats, our babies, and they went to new homes, and we were able to pass that along and help others. That was a great feeling to have learned that and be able to share that moving forward. But both of them enabled us to be independent, gain a great amount of confidence to caring for these animals, which was new to us.
Yeah, I'd probably be good with the whole thing until it came to birth time, and then I'd be like, all right, I'm either pull up a YouTube video. Let me see what to do here. I guess it's not quite the same as fixing the washing machine, but hey, Jen, I want to go back to the product. So you started out with the goats, obviously, and then you went to, the cheese and the different products, and now you've expanded into other, what we would call profit centers. You have chickens, eggs, jellies, baked goods. Was that a part of the original kind of vision for the business, or it's just as time went on, you begin to see how, those other profit centers would really kind of support like the main business?
Correct. When we first came and started the business, we gave ourselves 5 years, traditional 5-year plan, sit down, think this through. What milestones do we need to hit on a yearly basis so that I could actually leave the daycare? I did not close the childcare until 5 years into Mountain Grove Farm. So we're just entering our 3rd year now of this being sole income. It quickly came to me that I could not support myself milking 6 goats by hand. We had to make some decisions on what we were going to do. And the premise of us starting the farm was that we would be hands-on, we would not be mechanical. And so we had to find a sideline of income. So that's what we did. And we progressed, to answer your question, to a lot of farms will call them added value products. The milking season is also, we don't use hormones. And so the milking season is really about 8 to 9 months a year. And then the goat's what's called dry for a portion of the time while they're pregnant and getting ready to give birth again. So cheese was not a year-round revenue of income for us, or stream of income. So we did start to develop in other areas. I have always enjoyed cooking, and We started off with, there was apples on the property. So, we started to make some apple jam, and that led to, we had berries, and we ended up with some raspberry jam. And so we kind of grew that as well. And that works a great way for us to offer some different products rotationally on a seasonal basis for us.
Because, yeah, I mean, that's good because I think it was, our last podcast or last couple podcasts, we talked about, adding those different profit centers and how important it is. And I think this is good for our listeners is, as you build your business out, to begin to look at what other profit centers you can be added, but profit centers that, kind of make sense, that fit that main, kind of main business that you started with, and not try to go from, make it an apples and oranges, but really make those other profit centers really kind of line up with what you're doing across the board. And it sounds like, you've really done a nice job with that, adding these other product lines and other things that you're doing. That kind of, what surprised you and maybe in that piece of it to where, one of those profit centers has really done, far better than maybe what you originally thought it might, and how, maybe some of these other profit centers opened up that door?
Early on, became very aware that our jam jelly pickles were going to be extremely popular, and they still are. The demand for those is still beyond what we can produce. We are still small. We have got to stay small for another year. One of the tricks is also knowing that we just can't go from 0 to 500 and expect to survive on the other side of that. So we're still right now trying to meet the demand. And after another year of that, I think we'll be in a place where we can expand out and then increase our productivity. The uniqueness of what we offered, we didn't want to make anything that was traditional. Most of our jam and jelly are super creative. I've enjoyed that process of this. A lot of booze involved. We do what's called rhubarb smash. Who even does that? Everyone makes strawberry rhubarb jam, including us, and it's very popular. Then we decided we would cook some rhubarb down with some bourbon, almost like an applesauce, and it has become probably our most popular item. It's unique. It's a niche, again, that no one else has. It's kind of become our trademark. Those kinds of things evolve, and we have to always be looking towards what's going to be the next exciting thing that we can bring to our client. We can only sell so many jars of strawberry rhubarb jam at the farmer's market each week. So that evolution of a consistent rotational product is super important to us, and we offer it only seasonally. That's really kept folks coming back to us and always looking for the next new item we have.
And I guess your price points on those things, because of, the seasonality of it, probably enables you to get a little better price point on those products.
Price points for us was a little bit tricky. We don't ever go into anyone else's booth. When we started this, we started obviously at the farmers markets. We would do 4 or 5 markets a week to figure out what clients wanted from us. And we just totally stayed away from what anyone else was charging, and we stuck to ourselves and what worked for us. We actually found at one point we were offering a special on a jar or a package deal. If you bought 3, there was a discount. And we found very quickly that that was most enticing and exciting to our customer. So we do offer bundle deals. And again, those are things we've come up with to consistently offer opportunities for the customer to have a savings that are loyally shopping with us, and also work out of the box of traditional 1-for-1 pricing. In other words, we're able to increase our value, drive our point of sale higher, and that's really worked well for us.
So Jennifer Dempsey, what was the one guest that we had that, because when Jen's talking about, growing the business, what was the statement they made that you grow based on, you grow as your revenue almost allows you? That's not how they said it, but anybody remember that?
Which guest do you remember it was?
Good question. I don't remember that either. But it was it's like, grow as your as your profits allow you to grow, not try to get too far ahead of yourself, something to that effect. Because we did have, Jen, one of our guests talk about that, and that was their approach to growth was, and it sounds like that's yours. You're not going to try and get too far ahead of yourself and taking a business to another level. You're going to let the business kind of support each level of growth that you're planning on taking. Would that be right?
That's correct. And I don't know what the schooled definition of is for correct time to grow. We have really tried to be financially stable in our growth. This year, we really had the potential to explode our volume. In a traditional non-COVID year, we would have exponentially grown our business sales-wise. However, we've held back on that because this is such an uncertain time. We didn't want this to end and have our dynamic change. We had two choices this year. We either had to cease or we had to roll with it. This is one of those entrepreneurial opportunities that we all face in business. COVID came, our farm stand was closed, it was winter. Farmers markets closed because we couldn't have them happen with public health, closed them down. So we had to come up with a plan quickly. We decided that we were going to ramp up our regular customers who we knew. We had created a good relationship with them. We have a very good Facebook following. That we were going to continue to offer them our service, even though we could not meet face-to-face. And we would either offer curbside pickup, they could come to us and pre-place their order, or we would offer home delivery to them. And that went crazy. With that adaptability that was thrust upon us for COVID, we have really grown a part of the business that we never even expected to have. And that has been our biggest area this year of new development. Again, not something we were planning on, but it's where we've gone. And it has been really great for us to see that potential. And it is what we will keep developing as we're going forward now.
Well, that's great insight. And I know we've talked about it with other guests that, COVID, it's like the blessing and the curse. Certainly it's been a curse, but then there's been some really innovative things or different areas in our business that we never really thought to maybe pay that much attention to because other areas were really doing well. But because of COVID or because of whatever challenge it was or is, something great really came out of it. And, your story is thankfully is exactly the kind of story that we've heard from other guests that, just being able to be innovative and adapt with what's happening, that an area of their business just took off, and that perhaps if this challenge or COVID never came up, maybe we would have never explored, that area. So that's a really great story. And I'm glad to hear it. It's always good to hear when areas of people's business explode. That's the kind of stuff that we like to hear. So Jen, real quick, I just wanted, if you could share with our listeners, when you decided to go from the childcare business that you were running to the farm, just share with our listeners what that story was of why you felt like you should do it. I know you said like you wanted to get out of, you felt like you had to get out of the house, but can you share it, like you had it wrapped around your family and why you felt like this was a good time? I just wondering if you could share that with our listeners.
I had been at home with my daughter. I started family childcare when she was just 2. She'd gone off to college, study animal science degree in vet tech. And it was time for me to make some personal choices for myself and think about what it is that I wanted to do rather than what it is that I needed to do and what had become familiar and comfortable to me. So I made the choice to jump in with both feet to this farming, which she later joined me with. I think it's important if folks are thinking about things to go for it and give it a try. The most common comment I hear back from people is, what if I fail or what if it doesn't work? Well, I don't know. What if you fail and it doesn't work? Did you learn something or enjoy something? That's part of being an entrepreneur. Whether it's COVID today or it's a drought tomorrow or it's a freeze and we lose all of our apples, there's always a challenge everywhere. That's part of the excitement of being an entrepreneur, is figuring that out and not looking at something that didn't work as a failure. It's one more stepping stone. There always has to be a plan B and C and D and E. Sometimes you have to make those in the snap of a finger. Other times you can sit down and plan them out on paper. But nothing really works, in my point of view, when you are operating a small business on a schedule. It's just not reality. The ability to constantly change and evolve with customer needs and weather. Look at us. We started off, we were going to raise meat. We went to cheese. You have to be adaptable. The bakery for us started really because we had booked 2 big craft fairs our first year in business, and we sold out of jam and jelly at the first one and had nothing to sell the next weekend. And it wasn't going to sell nothing, so we baked. We didn't have any more fresh fruit and vegetables. So there it went. And this sinful sugar cookie that we produced has become iconic. I mean, we sell thousands of them out of a disaster. You got to come up with plan B, and you've got to roll with it. And those are the things that I think people forget when they become self-employed and become entrepreneurs. Just go for it. It's not failure. It's evolution and a constant willingness to change. And that is what drives me every day. It's always different. And most days don't go anywhere near what you planned they were going to look like.
Well, that's
Say it again
interesting.
for the people in the back. Say it again for the people in the back. My goodness.
Yeah,
Amen.
Jen, I read a article over the weekend, and they had a quote in there by the Greek philosopher Epictetus, who said, it's out of our struggles that we find our strengths. And, I think that's just what you were just talking about there. And that's such a great story, with the farm markets and with COVID and all these things. I mean, that is, I mean, when you decide that you're going down the road, and Jennifer Dempsey can tell you this, we can all really speak to this. When you go down the road of entrepreneurship, you have to make the decision right from the beginning that, you're going to embrace the journey, because it is going to be a journey. There are going to be setbacks. There's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be all kinds of things. But if you have the mental approach, as you just described, of, that's the exciting part of how to work through these things, and how to come up with new ideas. And because, let's face it, that's where a lot of the major, life-changing things that's happened in this world have come out of those types of situations, of struggle, setbacks, failures, and then continuing to respond to those things. And so I just really appreciate how you describe that, because that is so important for, our entrepreneurial listeners, just to make sure you understand that is part of the journey. So embrace it, because, I just think of that commercial. You remind me of that commercial, Jen. Have you seen that? I don't even know what it's for, but it's the couple sitting there, and they got like this mixer setting on the table, and they're looking at it and say, what do we do with this? And then next thing you know, they make a batch of chocolate chip cookies, and the guy says, I think we could sell these. And the wife goes, nah. And then, then it's like 1 millionth order, the 1 millionth order, that they just, they went with it. They started cooking in their kitchen, and next thing you know, they've sold 1 million orders of their chocolate chip cookies, so, it all starts with that initial, probably, but with doubt. Great story. Great story, Jen.
Very
Yeah,
good.
fired up. I'm
Yeah.
taking notes. My daughter just stole my pen, but what I'm noticing with this conversation is a lot of shift, adjustment, adaptment, and that's really what entrepreneurship is all about. And sometimes we lose sight in that. And I think that what is inspiring, especially during COVID, especially during, having no control around your business, it exposes the weakness in your business. And what most entrepreneurs are really good at is taking the weakest link and raising it up. And it sounds like, you took a bad situation and made something really positive out of it, and then kind of rolled with it. Like, can we keep doing curbside pickup? Can we do deliveries? Can we make this another profit center? So out of something that you could just sit at home, like, I'm defeated, I'm frustrated, COVID is killing my business. We've seen so many entrepreneurs rise up from that and made adjustments. And that's really what it's all about. So this conversation has me fired up.
Yeah, I mean, and who doesn't want a sinful sugar cookie right now? I mean, I'm like, I am so hungry. It's like 12:30 and you're talking about sugar cookies. I mean, come on, Jen, you're flawless here.
Well, we'll get you guys some.
All right. I'll hold you to it. Janet, hook us up. All right. Send some, please. Yes, we would love some. Well, with all of that said, Jen, thank you so much for being willing to be a part of our podcast. Thank you for all the nuggets that you shared with our listeners today. What a great conversation. I'm right along there with Jennifer, feeling super fired up, and just really appreciative of your mindset that you shared with us today, that, yeah, there's challenges, there's things that's going on, but certainly your mindset is what stands out to me the most, that whatever it was or whatever it is, you're going to have a good mindset about it and make it happen. So thank you for sharing your nuggets. Thank you for sharing your tidbits with us. And to all of our listeners, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. We do want to tell you that if you guys have any comments or any topics that you would like for us to talk about on our podcast, you can send that to Two Daughters and Their Dad, and that is TWO, Daughters and Their Dad, @gmail.com. And so thank you again for tuning in today. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And until we can all see each other again, everyone stay safe, be kind to each other, but most importantly, be kind to yourself. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
We want to thank you for listening today. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave us a positive review. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors, Dempsey Weiss & Associates and J Faith Hair Studio.